afternoon. My name is Jessica Guerrero, and I'm a member of the Admissions Committee at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. Thank you for joining us today to discuss our wonderful and dynamic group, Wharton Women in Business. I'm going to actually walk you through the agenda, but before I do, I want to introduce you to two phenomenal students I have with me today, Cynthia Lamb and Yolande Wilson. Our agenda will cover a overview of the Wharton Women in Business, or better known as WIB, club here. Then we'll talk a little bit about some student profiles that we have for you. I'll walk you through the admissions process, and then we'll wrap up with a question and answer session. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to my wonderful student, Cynthia Lamb.
Hi, Jess. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you guys for tuning in today. My name is Cynthia Lamb, and I'm a second-year Wharton MBA here at the school. I'm originally from Westfield, New Jersey, and I went to undergrad at Washington and Lee University, small school in Lexington, Virginia, where I majored in English and business. Prior to coming to Wharton, I was involved in social impact and nonprofit work, and then here at Wharton, I'm involved in the 3-year JD MBA program, so I'm currently a second year here and a third year at the law school. And then after graduation, I'll be working at a law firm in New York City.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. My name is Yolande Wilson. I was born and raised in Ghana, and I came to the United States to attend Yale University, where I majored in economics and international studies. So prior to Wharton, I was working in New York as a management consultant, and I actually came to Wharton to study finance. So I'm going to be spending my next summer at an independent investment bank in New York.
We're really excited to be here today to talk to you guys about Wharton Women in Business, which is WIB. We call this organization, it's something that we hold very dearly to our hearts. And the reason that I personally joined WIB was when I first came to campus, I'd actually never been involved in a women's affinity group organization before. And I was really struck by the fact that WIB has a huge presence on campus. It's one of the largest student groups here, and the organization is dedicated to not only the professional but also our personal development as women. So as you can see in our mission statement, we really are focused on celebrating everything that we have in common and also our differences that make us stronger as an affinity group, and also moving forward to empower other women leaders in the industry. So what's WIB? Basically, we're, as I mentioned before, the biggest student group on campus. Every woman is automatically a member upon admission to campus in the Wharton MBA program. So we're right now 714 members strong, and we really try to be as inclusive as possible. So our events are heavily subsidized and usually free. So every week we have about 2 to 5 club events, which range from social events like manicures and pedicures with other women to leadership panels or speakers from top CEOs in the industry. This means that every year we have about 135 different events, and these include everything from like workshops to more active, interactive leadership sessions to also fun activities like workout classes. In terms of leadership positions, because we're such a big organization, we have 3 co-presidents, which were the lovely ladies featured before in the prior slide. And within that, we also have a board structure of 14 different committees headed by second years like me, and featuring first-year board members like Yolande right here. Yolande and I are both on the admissions committee together, and we'll talk a bit more about that later on. But really, because there's so many different leadership positions, there's many ways for different women to get involved from the moment they set foot on campus. And then beyond that, one of our most impressive accomplishments is our annual Women's Summit. The theme this year was called #WhatSheSaid, and it was conversations with women in leadership. So we boasted 450 attendees, and these were women from all over the country, including from Wharton, other business schools, industry leaders, CEOs. So it was a great lineup, and it happened right here in Philly at the Union League. And this was just a great opportunity for everyone to come together and talk about the different issues impacting women today. There were also exclusive opportunities to network with employers, and also just talk about different discussions leading and driving our empowerment nowadays. In terms of our specific ways that we support women, here on campus, as I mentioned before, we do have our 14 different committees. So admissions, here we are, talking to prospective students, connecting to future applicants, and also once you get accepted to Wharton, guiding your way here towards the next step of making your transition to Philly. Other committees that we have are really strong are alumni connections. So right now you're probably just applying to business school, not really thinking about life after, but having strong networks is really important to us in terms of recruiting for jobs, building those connections, and being able to have access to all these incredible women long after you graduate and leave our campus. In terms of career development, we realize that, especially for women nowadays, there are several ways and opportunities we're trying to support women in the industry. There are, at times, glass ceilings, or maybe like managing work-life balance is something that is of particular interest to us. And so career focuses on that and focuses on how you can make the most out of your job. We have special reps in technology, consulting, banking, PE, social impact, so really various ways to make sure that all of our industries are well covered so that when you come to Wharton, you can end up in the career of your choosing afterwards, whether you're looking for a career switch or going back to a more traditional industry. In terms of community relations, we have strong ties with our local affiliate organizations, and we are always looking for ways to give back to the local people. So, for instance, we've had volunteer charity events, partnerships with Habitat with Humanity, and these are groups of women, spending a Saturday out volunteering, and just finding that we're not just here in a bubble at Wharton, but we really are part of this bigger city and a bigger network, and we want to contribute to that. Of course, there's also health and wellness. We realize that business school can be busy. We also want to prioritize our well-being. So this is where the workout classes I mentioned come in. We know ClassPass is very popular right now, so we've had like core, Zumba classes, Pilates, SoulCycle, spin, whatever you can think of, you name it, we've had it. And we realize that these are just ways to bring women together as a group in fun and conventional manners. And then second to last, we have leadership development, which is something really key, and we think that's also something that sets WIB apart from other organizations in the sense that women here, we are looking for ways to build leadership and foster that among each other. And we think that one of the best ways to do that is by practicing it in real life. And so not just in terms of listening to panels and speakers, but also active opportunities for you to participate and give back. So we had a ropes climbing course last year with WIB. And so when you're working in teams together, you really learn that leadership firsthand. There's nothing like bonding, right over a ropes course and holding on to each other. So that's a lot of fun. And then perhaps the last, and one of my favorite parts of WIB is the social events. So every year we have a bunch of different events like small group brunches, wine nights. Last year we had Galentine's Day, just free chocolate and desserts. So fun ways for us to all get together and know each other better, just because here we are at a professional school, but we think most importantly at the end of the day is to build those lifelong friendships that will last you long after you graduate from Wharton.
Absolutely, Cynthia. And if I may chime in, there's a myth that first-year students are not necessarily involved in WIB, but I'm here to dispel that. I myself am an example of how a first-year student got involved with the organization. So, for instance, I applied for and was accepted into the first-year executive board. So I work with Cynthia on programming for prospective students, including this webinar. And I also applied for a leadership position on the operations team for the recent Women's Summit that took place. So I worked closely with second-year leaders within WIB and also first years to kind of make sure that logistics were running well for the conference and overseeing sort of the day-to-day operations of the summit. So definitely plenty of ways to get involved, and of course attending all the numerous fun activities that take place on campus organized by WIB every week.
And speaking of fun ways to get involved on campus, the next part of our presentation, we're going to focus on the affiliated clubs, which are outreaches and extensions of WIB. So Yolande, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So first and foremost, I'd like to highlight Wharton 22s. So Wharton 22s are an innovative group of men who have chosen to be active allies of the Wharton Women in Business. So these are men that are engaged on campus in actively promoting greater gender equality by fostering discussions on salient topics such as, gender perceptions in the workplace, as well as gender disparity in pay and so forth. So most recently, they had a great small group dinner event where the men of the Wharton 22s met with Wharton women to sort of just have a meal and discuss, issues that take place in the workplace around gender disparity and so forth. We also have the Mothers at Wharton organization, which is fabulous. They provide support for expecting mothers. Yes, there are women at Wharton that are expecting babies, and also women that have currently families at Wharton. So they come together and kind of band to make sure that these women have access to resources on campus to help them navigate, balancing academic responsibility, family life, and also career planning. So one wonderful example is one of my classmates is actually expecting, and the women of WIB came together to throw her a wonderful baby shower that took place this weekend. And that's just, an example of the supportive and collaborative nature of WIB.
So moving on, in terms of our involvement in campus, WIB is just one way to get involved. There's many other fantastic women leaders on campus, and we're going to highlight them in the following student profiles so you can see how you can become involved here at Wharton. So our first student profile is Sarah. Do you want to kick it off?
Sure. So Sarah, career-wise, started out in brand marketing, and she will be doing brand marketing at PepsiCo post-graduation. One thing that's unique about Sarah is her high level of involvement in student governance. So Sarah, in the first quarter of her time at Wharton, actually ran for and was elected Cluster 1 president, which is a great accomplishment. In terms of stretch experiences, which we like to highlight here at Wharton, she's a member of Wild Men Hockey, and she also did a tall ship sailing adventure in New Zealand as part of the Wharton Leadership Ventures.
Next up, we have Shay Familoni, who is enrolled in the dual degree program, a fellow JD MBA and friend of mine. The reason we wanted to really highlight Shay is because to show that there's many different ways beyond, extracurriculars, but also academically to get involved at different programs. So in addition to the JD MBA program, we also have Lauder, which is an extremely popular asset to Wharton. That's where you get a master's in international studies, as well as the HCM, healthcare management track. And that's another way where you can really hone in on a specialized area of expertise. But really, even if you're doing a dual degree program, you can make the most out of your time at both schools. So as you can tell here, Shay has gotten extremely involved. She's a leadership fellow, which is acting as a first-year mentor and also teaching assistant to first-year MBAs during preterm when you first arrive at Wharton. She's also involved in the nonprofit board, so giving back to the local Philly community, which is something that we hold dear and closely to our hearts. And also, she's involved in the WASA, which is, as well as AMBA, so 2 affinity groups. So that's something that's important to her. And she's also done treks to Israel and India, so really making the most out of her time both in the classroom, outside, and even internationally and abroad.
Our next profile is Kurtika Chawla. So Kurtika started out in finance and corporate finance and trading in New York, and she'll be focusing on investing in emerging markets post-graduation. So one thing that stands out about Kurtika is her active involvement in social impact. So she's a member of the Wharton Global Impact Consultants, which is one of the great programs at Wharton. So during the summer, for about 2 to 4 weeks, Kurtika and other global impact consultants travel to Africa, Southeast Asia, South America, and they work on sort of economic development projects by applying their business skills to improve quality of life for people on these continents. So that's one way that Kurtika is involved. She's also heavily involved in Venture Fellows. She's also the VP of Content for Dance Studio, and Dance Studio is one of the most popular groups on campus at Wharton. Basically, you get to learn different dances from Bhangra to Afrobeats, and then hold a showcase event for your fellow classmates. So the next profile is Linda Xu. So Linda is actually one of the co-presidents of WIB. She started out in private equity and then spent her summer at Uber, dabbling in the tech space for a little bit, and she will be going back to PE post-graduation. So that's one profile that kind of highlights the career fluidity that Wharton affords. With support from the MBA career office, you're able to kind of explore different industries and maybe go back to your first love if you decide that that's what you want to do, which Linda did. Linda's also not one, but she's majoring in 4 different majors at Wharton. And so to balance her academic responsibilities, she's heavily involved in a lot of fun activities. She's in the Wharton Food Club, she's in the Photography Club, she's in Dance Studio, and she's also an admissions fellow. And again, an affinity group that she's a part of is the Asian American Association. So Kristen is also a co-president of WIB, and Kristen has chosen to kind of focus her activities at Wharton on physical activity and also sports. So she's a member of the soccer club, she's also a member of the volleyball club, and she's a president of the ski and snowboard club. So the ski club is actually highly popular at Wharton. They host ski treks to Colorado and even places overseas, and they will be having actually a ski trip coming up in February where the rest of the class gets to join them in Colorado for a wonderful weekend of skiing.
So there you have it, a bunch of different profiles showing how really when you come to Wharton, it's what you want to make out of it. We often throw around the hashtag #MyWharton, and in this case you can see it's really true because you come to Wharton and if you want to come here and join the ski club, volleyball club, football club, get active in all those organizations, or if you want to become heavily involved in student governance in terms of cluster council or student life fellows or leadership fellows, you can do that as well. And we wanted to show the wide range of women who we all consider to be very strong leaders here on campus. These women are not just a small sample. In fact, a lot of women here on campus are strong representatives as well, and we're extremely proud to be a part of this community today. Back to you, Jess.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. So now that you all have heard all the wonderful things that our current students are doing here at the Wharton School, I know you all are eager to figure out, how do I get here? For those of you who are joining us who actually applied round one, I wish you the best of luck in the process. We are all rooting for you. And for those of you who are preparing your applications for round two, I want to share some tips that you could hopefully incorporate in the preparation of that process. Well, first and foremost, our admissions committee really evaluates candidates in three main areas. The first area is academic horsepower. We simply want to know, can you handle Wharton's curriculum? We take a look at your undergraduate transcripts. If you have obtained a master's degree or a PhD in a different area from a different school, that's okay. We also look at that as well. We look at your overall GPA. We look at your standardized test scores. You could submit a GMAT or a GRE score. And we really also look at your current work with regards to if it's applicable to the work that you will be doing in the classroom. And then we make a evaluation based on if you can do well with Wharton's curriculum. The second area that we evaluate your candidacy on is your professional work experience. We simply want to know the scope, scale, influence, and impact that you had in the various roles that you held full-time specifically before you decide to apply to an MBA program. With that, I would really encourage you to seek out leadership responsibilities in your role to make sure that you're documenting, your progress and your success in the workplace to maintain good relationships with your managers so they can also hopefully write you a letter of recommendation. With those letters of recommendation, we simply look for employers, supervisors, mentors, colleagues, whoever can speak well on your behalf and advocate for your candidacy to help us understand how well do they think you would do in Wharton's classroom, as well as how well do they think you would actually do in your professional trajectory. We use that information to hopefully understand how you would contribute not only to Wharton community while you're in the Wharton School, but also a part of the larger Wharton community as a member of our alumni community. We then look for unique qualities, and this really helps us understand who are you? What do you care about? What motivates you? What makes you tick? How will you contribute to the community outside of your past work experiences as well as your academic experiences? How would you participate in clubs like Wharton Women in Business or other affinity social or professional groups that you care about? Or if there are things that are near and dear to you that you feel like help us understand, how you identify, what do you care about? That unique quality, we look for diversity of background, experiences, thought, etc. So we really inform you and advise you to let us know outside of your workplace and your academic background who you are. What makes you you? One thing that makes our application process a little different than our peers, instead of providing a one-on-one interview, if you are invited to interview, we actually place you in a team-based discussion. The team-based discussion is modeled off of the learning teams that you will participate in during preterm, where we ask 5 or 6 members who are also candidates to come in a room and simply discuss a prompt that we provide for you. And the purpose of that is for us to really get an understanding of how you operate as a member of a team. And our role is to simply say, if the Wharton school model is based on groups and teams and peer leadership, how do you fit in to that structure? So that's something that makes our application and interview process a little bit unique. So for those of you who are applying for round one, good luck in the process and your upcoming team-based discussions. For those of you who are planning to apply round two or round three, I wish you all the best of luck, and feel free definitely to reach out to us if you have any questions or if you need more information about how to prepare for your application. So now we're actually going to transition into the question and answers from those of you who joined us today. So the first question we have today is, how does one assume a leadership position in WIB or another student club? I'm actually going to pass that on to our student leaders for them to answer that question.
So when you first get here to Wharton, there's something called MBA Pub, and that's actually one of the best times to get to know all the clubs on campus. We're heavily involved, and in terms of the application process is, once you decide you want to join a certain club, you can WIB in particular has an application process, so a short 250-word statement of intent, and then we host interviews afterwards to join that as well.
Yeah, just to add on to what Cynthia said, there's plenty of opportunities to get involved on campus, and people simply choose clubs based on preferences, and then they end up assuming leadership position in one or multiple clubs on campus.
Our second question is, what would you say would be the best investment of your time so far at Wharton? Cynthia?
Well, I think obviously WIB, which is why we're here today. And generally, I would say that just because, as I said, this is my first time joining such a big affinity group, and WIB is definitely an organization that puts its money where its mouth is. And because we're such a big organization, we've committed so much money and time and human resources to funding all our events. So you can really see the impact that we have on campus, which to me is astounding. So for instance, being on WIB's board as VP of Admissions this year, we were able to start this webinar, which was something we were doing for the very first time. We were also doing postcards to women who were admitted last year, and we also had different brunches during the winter and spring welcome weekends. So these are all ideas that I had as a first year, and when I joined the board at WIB, I was actually able to see them come to action during my time here. And so for me, being able to make those come true, I think that's a sign of a really effective and strong impact of a club. Yolande, did you want to?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely echo everything that Cynthia said. And I would say personally, I've had the best time getting to know the women at WIB and women on campus in general. I do feel that, spending time during small group dinners, group lunches, even through some of the social events, getting to know other women has been extremely fulfilling. So for instance, we held a speed dating event for first-year women to sort of get to know each other. So over lunch, we had, 4-minute intros back and forth, and really broadened our networks that way. So I think, pretty much emphasizing everything that Cynthia said, I would say that, spending time within the WIB organization has been most fulfilling.
Thank you. Our next question, I'm actually going to shoot that back to you, Yolande. Can you speak a little further to the initiatives within the club that focus on men, educating men on various ways to become allies for women in the workplace?
Absolutely. So there are quite a few formalized initiatives. So one of them that was mentioned earlier is the Wharton 22s. So essentially, it's the men on campus that have signed on to be a part of this organization who are active allies of women in the workplace. So I would basically say that, they showed a lot of support to the WIB organization. They helped us co-host a pub recently. And then we've also had, cross events such as the Storytellers, where we had women on a panel and also men talking about, experiences within the workplace where they felt that there might have been gender bias, and kind of solutioning out ways to circumvent that as well. So you'd see all over campus that, men are actively involved, and WIB works directly hand in hand with them to make sure that, these issues are top of mind and are being addressed by the entire student body.
Thank you for that. I'm actually going to follow up to that question and shoot this over to you, Cynthia. Is there a Fathers at Wharton club to help fathers support their children or their wives while they're currently at Wharton?
So one of the really popular clubs at Wharton is the Partners Club, and this is something that's different from others at Wharton in the sense that it's for all partners at Wharton, including both husbands, boyfriends, significant others. And so this is really great because there's a lot of events for the Partners Club, and a lot of events they'll often have like speakers, for instance, talking about balancing work-life balance, how to support your spouse at Wharton, and there's also different opportunities. All of our clubs and events many of them are open to partners as well. So different ways to get involved.
Great, thank you. Is there a strong culture supporting international women at the Wharton School?
Yes, absolutely. I would say that there are so many organizations on campus that cater specifically to international women and men. So I, for instance, am a member of the Wharton African Students Association, and there are several affinity groups for different ethnicities on campus that kind of host programming for specific people from a given country or a given region. So definitely there's a strong culture of support. There are also events hosted by the International Student Organization, specifically on topics such as how to network in the U.S., exposure to different U.S. cultures, what to expect in a corporate setting in the U.S., and so forth. So you'll find that there are a plethora of resources that are readily available, and all you have to do is just pretty much show up.
It's also really exciting in the fact that 1/3 of our students are from international countries, and so every single day in their classroom, when you're interacting, hanging out at social events, going to parties together, you are around a lot of international classmates, and I've learned so much from them personally. So there is a very strong culture of support there, both formally and also unofficially.
Great, thank you so much. We received a question that would love for both of you to answer with regards to what does a day at Wharton look like? On a daily basis, what are the different activities a student can take part into? How do you manage that with your current work schedule? Class schedule, excuse me.
So life at Wharton is pretty exciting in the sense that every day is different. As a bonus, we don't have class on Friday, so it's Monday to Thursday, but really every day is pretty jam-packed. So for me, a typical day will involve going to class in the mornings, and that will be in Huntsman Hall on campus. And then during the day, I'll often have lunches, and those are either catching up with friends or meetings or different panels that are hosted by clubs, which usually involves free food, always a bonus. And then after class, which is around like 4:30, I'll have club meetings or either like work in group projects. That's also a great time to work at 2401, which is our offsite building in Center City. So on my way home, I can meet up with group members there, people in my learning team. And then later on, I'll usually have a happy hour event or small group dinner, either related to clubs or my personal social network. And then on weekends, for me, there's always something to do at Wharton. And I think it's really the challenge is finding and choosing what you want to do, because on every given night there's multiple parties, events, and small group gatherings. So making the most out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Cynthia said it all, but I really wanted to emphasize the lunch and learns that are hosted on campus. So Wharton has a great reputation and is able to attract a lot of I would say celebrity speakers to come to campus. So for instance, Richard Branson, CEO of Virgin Group of Companies, was on campus recently. I also got to listen to the CEO of Coach speak about the retail space. So in between classes, you'll get exposure to a lot of business intuition and business knowledge just from having alumni and also, I guess, marquee corporate individuals come to campus to speak.
Great, thank you. So both of you highlighted a wide variety of activities to participate in on any given day, consistently throughout your time at Wharton. Can you speak a little bit to how you balance your time between activities and classes? I know that is a big struggle for students at Wharton, so our audience would love to know how does one manage that?
I'd say Google Calendar. A lot of Outlook, managing Google Calendar and invites. But in all seriousness, I think coming in with a plan and knowing what you want to get out of the Wharton experience. As we mentioned before, highlighted in our student profiles, women and men alike are involved in, like 4 to 6 clubs, and that's not uncommon, actually. It's pretty common, and I think it's just deciding where you want to prioritize your time. So even though you may be involved in 4 to 6 clubs, just choosing to be heavily involved, either taking on a leadership position or committing a significant time investment on the board of one of those clubs, maybe like a few of those, and then balancing that with more fun or more fun activities or less commitments. So just knowing to juggling that is pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with Cynthia on that. I would say probably making a lot of lists. There are also formal resources that are available to kind of help students weather this. Prioritization of different activities on campus. So, for example, for academics, the Wayne Garden Center has a time management course that they can provide to students to kind of help you juggle all your academic responsibilities. There are also a lot of wellness programs for like stress relief and stress management. I, for one, I'm a member of the yoga club, and I do spend a lot of time, sort of meditating once in a while just to get centered and not get so stressed out by all the choices available. So you'll definitely find that, you're in it with your friends, you're supporting each other, and you're also kind of being focused on your plan, like Cynthia said.
Great. Our next question is with regards to the body of the Wharton Women in Business Club. Are there women who currently are in the executive MBA program in WIB as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we mentioned, WIB is open to all women in our MBA and Executive MBA program. And so every week we actually have a newsletter that goes out highlighting all of our events for the week. It's one of the most popular newsletters. And usually if you have events and sign-up sheets, those will fill up within 5 to 10 minutes because the slots go very quickly. And that mailing list is distributed to all the Executive MBAs as well. So our events are definitely open to them.
Thank you. So this question is with regards to mentorship. Are there opportunities for current students to find mentors with faculty and alumni? I know you highlighted a little bit earlier in the presentation that you do have a group dedicated to alumni, but can you talk a little bit about those relationships that are formed and also how it may connect with faculty currently in the program?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our ways our alumni network has been really strong, and also in terms of faculty, is especially highlighted with female entrepreneurs. And that's something that we really focus and prioritize here at Wharton. And I think that's where the support comes out the strongest. So recently, last year, we had Marie from Matt and Marie's, which is one of our startups here at Wharton. She's based here in Philly. She makes sandwiches and catering that's organic and healthy. And she actually came back and talked about how when she was just starting out at Wharton a few years ago, she was able to gain so much support from recent alumni just by emailing them and reaching out. She was astounded by the amount of responses and feedback she got. And she really attributes it to the power of WIB and also the power of being a student. The Wharton email address. She said that was your most powerful asset. She also found a lot of strong support from faculty on campus in terms of mentoring her through the process, finding incubators, capital, and funding. So that's just one prime example of that, and it also extends to other industries based on my own experiences and my friends as well.
Absolutely. And the CEO of Warby Parker actually taught my marketing class a while back, and he talked about how sort of the retail and marketing professors really helped him when he was getting Warby Parker off the ground. So I guess, definitely echoing everything that Cynthia said. This is typical of Wharton. It's very easy to find mentors in alumni, in faculty, and even in other students. And I will say that, professors typically have an open door policy, they have office hours, and they also have small group dinners and small group lunches with students that you can sign up for. So if you find a professor that has expertise in the field that you're interested in, you can definitely reach out and schedule time to chat with them and sort of bounce your ideas off of them.
Great, thank you. So our next question is with regards to how your prior work experience helps with your current Wharton experience. I'm going to talk a little bit about this from the evaluation process, but would love to hear any personal anecdotes from our current students. So one thing that we do in the evaluation process is exactly that. We try to understand how your prior work experience will help enhance and color your understanding of the material tackled in the classroom, as well as strengthen your networking within with students within the community. And so we try to understand, what has this person been able to accomplish in their past work experience? What types of projects have they worked for? Companies have they been a part of that really kind of speak to very kind of cutting edge innovation happening in the workspace, as well as that can help them really grasp the material in classes and then also share their experiences in the classroom to help, enrich other people's understanding of the material. But I would love to hear your understanding of if that actually rings true, and if so, can you talk a little bit about some experiences that you've had that your work experience or perhaps your peers have demonstrated in a classroom that help round out your understanding?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm actually taking a class right now called Understanding Careers, and this class is all about the insights that we've gleaned from our prior experiences and how we can come together and use that to enhance our future careers. So the greatest learnings I've had from those class came from my classmates and what they learned from their prior jobs. Just because coming to Wharton, there's so much diversity and backgrounds. People come from banking, consulting, PE, government, military, and hearing what they had to say offered a lot to me in terms of rounding out my experience. There's also a series of lunches and panels based on student speakers, so kind of like peer learning, and this is very popular. We've had students talk about, coming from the military and what lessons that taught them and what they're bringing to Wharton. So these are monthly discussions, and they're kind of lunch and learns where you can get to learn from your classmates directly based on their prior experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. As first-year Wharton students, you're kind of grouped with others in a learning team. So for the core courses that you do take at Wharton, you'll be working directly with them. And you find that everyone has a certain area of expertise, which brings a lot to the team as a whole. So for instance, we have a former data analyst on our learning team who is happy to take on every model that we do in class. And we are definitely learning a lot from him. I myself was a consultant in a former life, and I find that my perspective brings a lot to discussions around marketing and business strategy and so forth. And so, I think this is one of the areas where emphasis on your prior work experience really enriches the Wharton experience.
Great. Thank you. And so, as we know, you come in with a lot of prior work experience, but many of you are looking to pivot into a new career or elevate your already existing career, and you're looking for Wharton support to make that happen. Our next question asks, how did you find your summer internship, and can you speak to the career management support? So I'm actually going to tackle the second question, and then I'm going to hand it over perhaps to you, Yolande, since you actually just finished the recruitment and internship process. So our career management center is actually divided into a student-facing team and an employer-facing team to really manage all different aspects of the job search process. So we have a team of advisors that work directly with students to get a better understanding of what type of job that they're looking for their internship or their full-term job, and helps to really support, advise, and guide them on preparing for those jobs. We have an employer-facing team that really works with a wide variety of industries to help make sure that employers are picking Wharton as their number one place to find recent MBAs, as well as getting insider information on how to make sure that our students are best prepared to go out and actually secure these jobs. With that, our team actually is divided up by industry, so you don't get a career kind of generalist, a career coach in that regard. The person in career management that will work with you depending on your industry actually is a industry professional. For example, our consulting team, many of the people that work on our consulting team actually worked for many of the top consulting firms prior to coming to Wharton, so they still maintain those relationships and are able to share not only just a general expertise, but their own experience in making sure that Wharton students get to where they need to go. Our recruitment process actually is divided into mature recruiting and enterprise recruiting. Our mature recruiting are, your bulge bracket banks that come on campus, as well as your consulting firms that kind of, in a very traditional way, are looking to hire a large number of interns as well as associates coming out of the MBA program. And our enterprise team recruiting process is actually really speaks to those one-off jobs that may happen more on a rolling basis, that isn't necessarily looking to be confirmed at a particular time during the year. So understanding that's a general overview, I'm going to hand it over to Yolande to speak directly to her experience just going through this process.
Sure. So Definitely the Career Management Office is extremely helpful in the internship process. Wharton does get a lot of companies that come to campus actually to host employer information sessions as well as coffee chats. So as a student, you have plenty of opportunities to interact with the companies that you're interested in, to get to know them a little better, and for them to get to know you as well. Aside from that, there are several resources, several courses that are offered where you get to work on different aspects of your candidacy. So for instance, I attended How to Network course. I attended a Develop Your Pitch course where we actually in real time kind of practice our pitches with each other and with a coach. Certainly there are plenty of ways that the clubs on campus, the industry clubs, help students get prepared. So for instance, I'm in the Wharton MBA Finance Club, and they recently had Training the Street come on campus to teach students how to do corporate valuation and modeling and so forth. And all of this was heavily subsidized through the club, and these are resources that we would not have had access to otherwise. So through the clubs, through the Career Management Office, and even second years who are ready to help you case for consulting interviews, prepare for banking interviews, introduce you to contacts through their networks and so forth. There are plenty of ways that Wharton kind of helps you prepare for your next career. And I myself am a career switcher. I was doing consulting before, and I will be doing banking next summer. So I would say anything is possible at Wharton, given the amount of resources that you have available.
Great, thank you. Our next question speaks to the application process. Are there any scholarships available to women? The quick short answer is yes. We actually provide Forte fellowships. So for those of you who are unaware of what Forte is, it is a national professional or international professional organization that is designed to prepare women for leadership in business. There is multiple tracks that you could be a part of. We actually partner with Forte for pre-MBA women. So for those of you who are definitely looking to receive some application and career support for preparation into an MBA program, I strongly advise that you sign up from fortefoundation.org. And through the Forte Foundation, we actually offer Forte fellowships. Once students are admitted to the MBA program, we actually award a number, I would say about 5 or 6 a year, to women who have demonstrated a commitment to women in education, leadership, or business somewhere in their application process. So this is through extracurricular activities, perhaps the current work that you're doing, things that are mentioned in your essay or your recommendations, as well as your relationship with the Forte Foundation. And then we make those decisions and award those fellowships out at the time of admission. There are other fellowships that may be specific to women. They're more so on our endowed fellowship. So I would encourage you to look at our financial aid page and look at all the different fellowships and their descriptions to see if there's any one that actually speaks to, what criteria you may fit. But Forte is the fellowship that we provide specifically for women. What are you looking for in the interview or team-based discussion process? Great question. So the team-based discussion is really, as I mentioned before, designed to really take about 5 to 6 candidates, put them in the room, and help them understand what life is like in the Wharton classroom. We simply want to know, how do you operate as a member of a team? Now, the best way I like to advise candidates to prepare for a team-based discussion is really simple. Think about a time when you actually was a member of a team. You were a member of a team. It could be during school. It could be in your current workspace. It could be in a club or organization, anything that you care about. Think about a time when the team actually operated really well, and think about a time when the team didn't operate well. What are some characteristics that you can assign to both scenarios to help you understand what constitutes a good team member and what perhaps constitutes a bad team member? And then I would think fondly on the time that you had those positive experiences and just simply show up to the team-based discussion prepared to operate in a positive team environment. Our role as facilitators of the team-based discussion is to simply observe how you connect with your peers. So if you're someone that actually, can really support other people along this journey, you'll do quite well. Our next question is also connected to admissions. Do we have any advice for the application process reflecting on your experience applying for Wharton? I'm going to hand it over to you all since you actually just went through this process, and you could share a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, one of the best pieces of advice I got was to really make the most out of your personal statement. At this point when you're applying, you've probably taken your GMAT or doing that soon. You know, your undergraduate record is kind of already set. You probably have asked your recommenders for letters, but your personal statement is really a chance, an opportunity for you to describe your career trajectory. And so when I approached it, I looked at it as kind of having a roadmap. And not only why it'd be nice to get an MBA, but why it makes sense. This is the inevitable next step for me to come to Wharton and get an MBA. And so in terms of laying that out, I had an immediate after post-graduation plan, and then perhaps like a 5-year and then 10-year longer term plan. We realized that probably will change at some point. No need to be set in stone, but just the exercise of going through that and thinking about that shows a lot of thought. And I also learned a lot about myself in the process. So definitely recommend putting that time into the personal statement, as well as adding personal touches. I think that's always a nice way to approach it.
Sure, absolutely. And I think given how busy we are in our prior workplaces, I think it's important to kind of take time, set time aside to kind of reflect on your life, your journey, certain experiences or people or occurrences that have kind of shaped you as an individual. And I think that amount of thoughtfulness will reflect in your personal statement once you get around to writing it. So definitely agree with everything that Cynthia said, and that would be my 2 cents that I would add.
Great, thank you. And I would actually just add, think about this holistically. When you're preparing your application, you want to make sure that you're telling a complete story of who you are. So for example, if you had a 2-year kind of gap while you were an undergrad, make sure you help us understand why that was the case, right? If you feel like you had a rough start in undergrad and a strong finish or vice versa, help us understand a little bit about what was going on during that process so we can kind of really think about your journey as one, story versus kind of fragmented stories. I would also add that it's really important to show up authentically as who you are. Don't write your personal statement based on what you think we want to hear. I would say have someone else read your application and ask them questions like, does this sound like me? Do you get an understanding of why I want to go into an MBA and what I want to do afterwards? So the more kind of clarity you have in those answers to those questions, the better off it translates when we're reading an application. We won't have the opportunity when we're reading applications to ask you a bunch of questions if those things aren't really clear in your candidacy. So that's the best way. Be yourself, be your authentic self. Have people help you put together the application with regards to does it sound like you, and just press submit. At the end of the day, allow us to tell you no versus you kind of self-selecting out because you don't think that you may be a good fit for Wharton. Allow us to tell you that. Our next question actually speaks to the overall student culture at Wharton. Is it competitive? Is it, a team-based setting as we try to model in the team-based discussion? Can you talk a little bit about how you would define the culture here at the Wharton School?
Sure. I think the Wharton culture is far from competitive. In fact, it's very collaborative and supportive, and that's what I've found since I've been here. I think Wharton tries to model most activities, including schoolwork, around teams. So you'll be exposed to different teams. You'll work with them in different settings. You'll get to know people on a very deep level. So for instance, during preterm, we had these sessions where we kind of dug deep and kind of talked about different personal stories that allowed us to get to know each other very well. So once you've kind of crossed that bridge of familiarity, it's easy to build trust. So once you have that trust with your classmates, you're able to kind of form bonds with them and then also work with them to achieve their goals even as you work on achieving your goals. So I found that, people are really helpful. For instance, with recruiting, I'm forwarding off, books that I use from my investment banking interviews to peers. I'm talking to classmates about my past in consulting, giving them tips for their success. And I think everyone's pretty much open to sharing, to helping each other